Just coming up to 10 Thursday morning, Gareth Barlow with you on Sky News, and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has said that she backs Andy Burnham, who she believes will be the next Prime Minister. Speaking to our very own Sophie Rich, she told the British Chambers of Commerce conference in London that her fiscal discipline is working and that the new Makerfield MP is committed to continuing it.
Andy Burnham, who will be the next Prime Minister, has been really clear that he is committed to those fiscal rules. And that is a good thing because it means that businesses here can be confident that that stability, that rigour to policy making, that tight grip on the public finances, which is essential for getting inflation and interest rates down, will be continued.
I'm really interested to talk a bit more about the fiscal discipline side of things, which obviously has been a big part of your chancellorship. But, you know, you've come out there and addressed the elephant in the room. You're saying that Andy Burnham is going to be the next Prime Minister. Do you want to be his Chancellor?
Well, those would be choices for him. I'm not going to preempt those. When he becomes Prime Minister, he will make those decisions around the top team around him. But I'm not going to preempt that. Those are his decisions.
I might ask a slightly different way. Do you feel you have unfinished business as Chancellor then?
Well, I'm really proud of my record, and I think in those 2 years, if you look at, first of all, those key macro numbers on inflation, on interest rates, on economic growth, the fact that wages have risen faster than inflation for every single month that I've been Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Joined now by our economics and data editor Ed Conway and our political correspondent Amanda Acaster. Ed, to you first, just talk to us about these fiscal rules. It's kind of a phrase that gets used so frequently, but what exactly is the Chancellor saying there that Andy Burnham would subscribe to?
Well, so Chancellors, actually, for a long time, going back to Gordon Brown, have had various different types of fiscal rules. And what the fiscal rule basically says is we are going to constrain ourselves. There's going to be a certain limit beyond which we're not going to borrow and beyond which, for instance, the national debt isn't going to go up. I mean, the particular kind of flavour of these fiscal rules has varied over the years. But in Rachel Reeves' case, she says that she wants, for whoever's going to succeed her, to keep the fiscal rules that she has. I think the challenge that she faces, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, you know, you heard her there just talking to Sophie, talking a lot about defending her record, which of course you'd expect her to do. The challenge that she faces is, first of all, Andy Burnham has branded himself as the change candidate, as someone who's going to come in and change the way that the Labour Party implements economic policy and policy across the UK. Continuity is not what he's after, and so whether or not he kind of keeps the fiscal rules, I think there's a big question mark, which I think most people have answered, which is that his Chancellor is not going to be Rachel Reeves, though she did make a case for that today. I think the second issue she's faced with is that throughout her time in office, I think when things have got tough, the markets have responded. And when I say markets have responded, out there, the price of UK government debt and the interest rate, more importantly, the interest rate that the UK is being charged to borrow, that has occasionally spiked when it looked like her future was in doubt. I mean, most famously, when she was in tears in the House of Commons, when it looked like a lot of people assumed that she was going to be leaving office, bond yields rose. The challenge, I think, on top of that continuity question that she faces at the moment is that since Andy Burnham won that by-election and since it looked like a kind of fait accompli that he was going to become Prime Minister, the bond yields for the UK haven't spiked. It's not like markets are fretting. And the fact that pretty much everyone is assuming she's not going to be Chancellor kind of underlines that markets seem kind of relatively relaxed. I mean, there's all sorts of other things going on, but they seem, touch wood at the moment, relatively relaxed about there being a different Chancellor. I think the only question now, and it's a seriously live question, and people I talk to, everyone has a different opinion about it, is who is going to be that next Chancellor. I mean, Shabana Mahmood's been mentioned, Yvette Cooper, you've got Wes Streeting, you've got Ed Miliband as well. No one really knows. And who that is going to be incredibly consequential because there are enormous deep-seated issues facing the UK at the moment on top of that question of the fiscal thing. So, do the numbers add up for the government? You have the fact that the UK, well, the growth story hasn't been terrible, certainly in recent years. It's just relatively weak growth compared with what we could expect, a few decades ago. And this government came into office saying it was going to boost growth. Well, it's been a bit stronger than in the previous years, but it hasn't necessarily been as strong as they had promised. So there are so many challenges that the next administration will face. It doesn't seem like Rachel Reeves is going to be part of it. And the interesting question is not just who is going to be Chancellor, but is that new Chancellor and is, the new government actually going to take really difficult decisions to try and deal with the welfare system, to deal with UK's high energy costs, to deal with the fact that the national debt is high and rising? Or is it going to just be kind of continuity and we'll just try and stay popular? Because some of that stuff is really going to be unpopular.
Ed, joining us from our Westminster studio, thank you. Well, let's also bring in Amanda Acas, who's with us. Amanda, if not Rachel Reeves, then who? And how might this all be viewed on the other side of the pond by President Trump?
Yes, so Rachel Reeves clearly making a bit of a pitch to stay in her job as Chancellor there, hoping that whoever ends up succeeding her, if that is someone else, that they will continue with her policies, insisting she stands by her record and indeed is proud of it. She said that several times in that interview with Sophie there. Other possible candidates? Well, Ed Miliband is the person who's been most talked up as a likely Chancellor for Andy Burnham. He's a close ally. He has been supporting him for a long time, seconded some people from his team to Andy Burnham up in Makerfield, and is someone who told Sir Keir Starmer he needed to leave office several weeks even before the local election. But I think there is a bit of a pushback against that being likely appointments from a number of people within the Labour Party and beyond. There are concerns, obviously, he's the person who's led the country's policies on net zero, the push against any further drilling in the North Sea, which, of course, were at the very core of Sir Keir Starmer's project, but which has had a lot of pushback more recently with the rising cost of energy, and appointing him Chancellor would perhaps reduce Andy Burnham's room to manoeuvre there. Also firmly positions him sort of on the left of the party in terms of his future fiscal policies at a time when he wants to reassure the markets after those comments he made about not wanting to be in hock to the bond markets, even though subsequently, as Ed was saying there, that he has pledged to stick to the fiscal rules. Alternatively, Yvette Cooper's someone who's been talked up as a safe pair of hands. Pat McFadden, Wes Streeting. Did he maybe cut a deal with Andy Burnham to kind of give up his own leadership ambitions in order for that prime job at the top of government? Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, although perhaps she seems to want to see through her immigration reforms. That's another big topic of debate. And talking to Team Burnham this morning, I understand that it is possible they will be making some key announcements in terms of a future Andy Burnham cabinet before he is even confirmed as Prime Minister, although that full cabinet wouldn't be announced, as you would expect, until it's confirmed that he actually has the job, which is likely to happen in a few weeks' time. Now, as you say, one person who has an opinion on this, as everything else, is Donald Trump, who made a few comments about Andy Burnham, which were a little bit rude, I think is fair to say, although not outright, not openly hostile, which is perhaps a good thing. Let's have a listen.
I don't know anything. I see that he was, I guess, the mayor of a town. I hear he's extremely liberal, extremely. So that means he probably won't open up the North Sea. You know, I gave Keir Starmer some pretty good advice. I said, open up the North Sea. Go to Aberdeen, which was the hottest city in the whole continent. It was the oil city. It was the oil of Europe. And they closed everything. It was terrible. I saw it before my eyes, and I couldn't believe it.
Now, Donald Trump claims that Andy Burnham is just mayor of a town and says he's extremely liberal, which I think he sees as a bit of an insult, given that he's on a very different end of the political spectrum. But at the same time, it will be interesting to see what kind of relationship Andy Burnham, if he does become Prime Minister, manages to forge with the US President. Perhaps he will appreciate his kind of straight-talking style. And certainly, Sir Keir Starmer did originally manage to build up a good rapport with him until that relationship really foundered over the issue of Iran. But clearly the North Sea oil issue that we were talking about earlier is something that's really important for Donald Trump. He's criticised Sir Keir Starmer about it repeatedly, not least just before Starmer's resignation, when Donald Trump predicted that was going to happen and said it was as a result of his policies on energy and immigration. Perhaps Andy Burnham, who is under real pressure from many MPs and indeed the unions to perhaps relax the party's position on that and certainly look at granting the oil drilling licences for the Rosebank and Jackdaw oil fields in the North Sea. Potentially that's something that Donald Trump would be very interested in seeing. Certainly he's lobbying for that already.
Amanda, live in Westminster for us. Thank you so much.